Hello and welcome to another FU IOP video in which I'll show you how to set up Nikon D810 to shoot full HD video. Okay, so let's switch the camera on. Okay, next thing we need to do is make sure the movie icon is selected and then press the LV button to get it into live view. Next, we're going to clear all camera settings by locating the two green dots on the camera, pressing and holding the button simultaneously to reset. Okay, and then we want the mode, you can see it's in program mode, we want that to be manual, so we press the mode button up here, use the command wheel and get that on M. Now we're in full manual mode. Okay, now we're going to go into the menu and we're going to format our SD card, which has already been preloaded. Okay, you'll see that you can also put in a CF card as well if you want to. We've only got an SD card loaded up today, so that's what we're going to format. Okay, so to get OK, you'd think you press that button, but you actually press the OK button. Next thing is we're going to go up to the shooting menu. Okay, you might start off here, so the top tip is if you want to get into movie settings, just press it up once. It's the last item within that shooting menu, so rather than scrolling all the way down, you can get there by just going up. Then you click across, and you've got frame size and frame rate. Okay. By default, once you've reset the camera, it automatically chooses that full HD at 25 frames per second, 1920 by 1080, 25 frames per second, which is the UK standard full HD. Okay, so that is the kind of standard that I expect most people to shoot at, if not higher. You can also select 24 frames per second if you want to, or 50 and 60 if you're doing some slow motion work. Just to give you an example, if you shoot at 50p, that's 50 frames per second, you'll get 50% slow motion, which you can basically achieve if you put it into your editing software and post-process it. If you play back a 50p clip in the camera, it's just going to play back at normal speed. Okay, so in order for that to be slowed down, you have to sort of do something to it basically in post-production. It's literally a couple of clicks, it's really easy to do. There we go. Okay, and then just make sure that the movie quality is set to high rather than normal. Okay, so I'm going to semi-depress the shutter release to come out of there, press the LV button to get back into live view, and now we're going to do the exposure triangle. Okay, so if you've read the video fundamentals already, you know the rule of thumb. Shutter speed is based on the frame rate and doubling it. So the frame rate is 25 frames per second, so you want to double it and you get a 50th. Okay, at normal speed, at a 50th, you're going to get a bit of motion blur, which is going to make it look smooth and natural. Okay, if you're shooting at 50 frames per second, you choose 1/100th of a second shutter speed, you're going to get less motion blur, but that's good because you're slowing it down. You don't want the image to be sort of smeary looking. Okay, and then the aperture is basically whatever depth of field you decide to have in your shot. And then the ISO is just based on sort of like what your lighting conditions will be. Obviously you want to keep the ISO levels as low as possible so you get a nice clean image. But in order to change the ISO, you press the ISO button and hold it and then use the command wheel to change there. Okay, so I've got my histogram up there to help me with my exposure. If you press the info button, you can cycle through the different sort of like info that you can display on the on-screen display. So you've got nice level image, so that's quite good on my tripod. It's nice and level, which I expect. You've got audio levels there, which I'll have a look at in a moment. Nice clean display there to compose your shot. And you've got a grid there if you want to sort of do sort of like unusual or traditional sort of like framing. And then the histogram's there. Okay? So an important thing to bear in mind when you're shooting video is that invariably the cameras that you took from the stores, they're going to shoot a compressed file format. So a bit like a JPEG but a moving image version. So it's critical that you get the white balance correct before you press record. Okay, you'll want to have that correct white balance baked in so that you don't have to correct it in post-production or do minimal correction. You're essentially looking after the file so that you don't have to push and pull it too much and then it won't start breaking down and looking rubbish. Okay, so there's a WB button, white balance, you press and hold that and then you can cycle through the presets. So tungsten lighting, sunlight, flash, cloudy, etc, etc. Okay, so I'm going to just do it manually and select my own Kelvin value. I'm going to look at the scene and just decide whether it looks too warm or too cool based on what I'm seeing. So at the moment it looks too cool, so I'm just going to navigate to the unit I want to change and then get to the point where I'm happy with it. Okay, so that looks pretty good compared to what I'm seeing, so I'm going to leave it at that. So that's a white balance sorted. Okay, so that's all done. Exposure, and the white balance. So next thing obviously is going to be focus. It's obviously not in focus at the moment. So generally speaking, I'll put the Nikon body AF on, and then if you're using a Nikon lens, I'll put that onto the M/A mode. And what that does, you get the kind of benefits of whichever autofocus mode you're in, but then you can override it using the focus ring as well. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get my little focusing rectangle on the area I want expanded, and then use the magnifying glass to expand on that area there to get the focus nice and sharp. Okay, and come out of there, now I know that my shot's nice and sharp. Providing they don't move, I don't change the focus, it's going to stay in focus. Okay, I'm going to press record. Happy days. Okay, what I'm going to do now is show you how to upgrade the audio. Okay, so we've got a video micro here made by Rode. It's not like amazing, but it's better than what you're getting on the camera. Okay, so it's kind of like a very sort of run and gun sort of approach where you want to record audio slightly better than what the camera can do. But if you're going to do professional audio, I would advise getting someone else to do the audio and recording either onto a separate audio recorder with a separate microphone, or at least get a good microphone and then pipe it into the camera. Okay, so this has got a mini jack lead that you just plug into the mini jack microphone port on the left hand side there. And then the D810 also has a headphone output as well. So the Canon cameras, generally speaking, don't have headphone output, which is really sketchy. Okay, they have a microphone input but no headphone output. So the D810 is winning on that front because it means you can preview and hear what your microphone is basically picking up before you press record, just to make sure that the microphone and the cables are all working and there's no kind of interference or noise coming into play. Okay, so we've plugged it in, then we obviously need to set the levels. Okay, so if we go into the I button, this is like basically the quick access menu. I'll just talk a little bit about this. So you've got the FX area here that allows you to sort of crop in if you want to do that. You can also set the frame size and frame rate and quality that we did earlier. Here's where you set the microphone sensitivity and whatever sort of audio work we're doing. So we'll do that in a moment, but I'll just run through the rest of the items on here. You've got the SD card there, monitor brightness, and highlight display and headphone volume. So obviously you change the headphone volume to whatever it is comfortable for you and your purposes and the conditions you find yourself in. The highlight display is essentially zebras. Okay, so if it's overexposing, you'll get like a bandy area. So let's just show you what that is. So I've selected that on, and I'll just crank the ISO up. And then you can start to see the zebraing happening there to tell you basically it's overexposing. Okay. Go back into the I1, there. So here is where we're going to change our microphone sensitivity. Select that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the microphone towards me so that it's picking up my voice. Ordinarily, obviously it'd be pointing in the same direction as the lens because you'd be probably recording and interviewing someone at the same time. Now what you want to do, at the moment we've got the microphone sensitivity relatively low, so we want to increase that by just pressing up like so. Okay, no, something's not happening. Oh yeah, there we go. So you can start to see that it's picking it up because I've increased the sensitivity of the microphone. Okay, and generally what we want it to be hitting around that sort of yellow region, the sort of like first yellow bars there. Okay, if I increase the sensitivity too much, then it's going to start peaking and it's going to start hitting the red area there, and that's going to be starting to distort, and we don't want that. So we're going to bring the sensitivity back there. On a normal decibel scale, it will be -12. Don't want to go below -18, and you don't want to go above -6. Okay, but if you reference the yellow color and it's hitting round about that first yellow bar, then you're in a particularly good area there. Okay, and if with your headphones, you'll be able to monitor it and hear what the quality is like. It should sound pretty decent. Okay, and you set your first audio levels there. Okay, so you press OK, come out of there, and then if you need to, you can press the info button and then just check your audio levels as you're filming, and if it starts getting too hot, then you can just kind of stop and then just readjust everything. Okay, so that's the audio. Lastly, I just want to show you about the picture control and picture styles. Okay, so if I press the key button there, you can see we've got different picture controls. On the Canons, they're called picture styles, and you can see that we've got standard, neutral, vivid, monochrome, portrait, landscape, and then there's a flat picture control there. Okay, and you can sort of like customize your own there. Okay, so if you wanted to sort of boost the dynamic range, or usable dynamic range rather, then you select the flat mode, and you can see that it's taking the contrast and the saturation out of that image. But what you need to do with that clip once you've filmed it is to take it into post-production, and then you need to just color correct it, bring it back to life, and then you'll have a decent looking image, but it'll kind of retain more dynamic range to a certain extent, providing you've exposed your image correctly. Okay, so that's picture control or picture style. To be honest with you, that'll be probably a bit further down the line when you're a bit more confident with shooting video in general. If you have it on vivid and you don't change it, it could be that you're just going to film, edit, and then quick turnaround output. Okay, so that's the kind of Nikon D810, a kind of quick rough guide on how to sort of use it and set it up for video. If there are any questions, put them in the comments, email me, chat me up on Teams, whatever you want to do. Okay, I hope this video has been useful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Cheers and bye.